This is better. This is better. So, let's try this again. So, I was in the middle of talking about 2 fights this past weekend. One with Jermallcharlo and Thomas Lamana, and then calebplant and Armando Resendiz. Now, these fights were supposed to line up calebplant and Jermallcharlo to have their face-off to settle their grudge match, because I'll give you the backstory after I give you the results of this. So, Jermallcharlo, he came in there, I think he's been off for 1 to 2 years, if not even longer. Came in, took care of business, got Lamana out of there in 6 rounds by stoppage, knockout. Did exactly what he was supposed to do in what would be termed a tune-up fight. But then, welcome back to the live stream. And then you look at calebplant and look at his performance against Armando Resendiz, and he was a heavy favorite, man. I think he was a minus 2,000 favorite, if not even more than that. That's a heavy favorite going into that fight. Nobody knew who Resendiz was. I did not know who he was. But he came in here and defeated calebplant by unanimous decision, 116 to 112 on 2 scorecards for Resendiz, and 1 scorecard had it 115 to 113 for calebplant. And I looked at, just looking at the highlights of that fight, calebplant looked like he was getting walked down in the middle rounds all the way to the end of the fight. At a certain point, Resendiz said, I'm going to step to you and I'm going to bring you this pressure because I don't think you can handle it. And the story of calebplant's career up to this point has been that he's very slick, fast hands, good defense, but he gasses out. And it seems like many of these opponents seem to be waiting Plant out, letting him empty the gas tank early, and then putting that pressure on him in the middle to later rounds of the fight. We saw it in the Canelo fight, and we saw it in the David Benavidez fight, and now we saw it in this fight against Armando Resendiz. Resendiz, I believe, was like 15-2 coming into this fight, and calebplant was like 26-3, something like that, coming into this fight. Listen, you look at calebplant, and you look at the later rounds, he started to wear down, and the reflexes started to wane a little bit. And even though he was faster than Resendiz, has quicker twitch when it comes to his reflexes than Resendiz, it didn't matter once that fatigue started setting in. And you start to see calebplant catching shots that he shouldn't be getting hit with. Getting a little lackadaisical within that Philly shell defense. Rolling with the 2 and being a little bit late on it. He got caught by Canelo Alvarez when he rolled late against the 2, and he got caught with Resendiz by either a 2 or a 4. Rolled late on it, man. Just getting sloppy with the fatigue setting in. And you look at this fight. First off, let's look at the opponent. 26 years old, heavy underdog, really got nothing to lose, and his mindset going in, I mean, people, if you listen to him talk, you know what time he was on. I'm coming in here to win. He's not coming in here to get a paycheck and bow down to, calebplant. No, he came in here to win. And mind you, didn't know this going into the fight. calebplant brought Resendiz in as a sparring partner when he was preparing to fight Canelo Alvarez a few years ago. So Resendiz has seen calebplant. calebplant has seen Resendiz to a certain extent. He knows some of the things about calebplant that calebplant's other opponents didn't know coming into a fight with Caleb. So maybe during that time, he was probably preparing calebplant to deal with the pressure that Canelo was going to bring. And maybe there were some things he saw and let him know that, you know what, if I'm able to wait out the storm, let calebplant tire himself out a little bit and apply pressure, I can probably have success. And look, he did that, and that's what happened, okay? And you have to wonder what is going to happen moving forward after this fight. Does calebplant get a bounce back fight? Is he still in the mix for things? Or is Resendiz now in line to fight Jermall because now the big fight between Charlo and Caleb Plant is off. Because coming into this, Plant and Charlo were supposed to beat their respective opponents and have their big grudge match maybe sometime later this year or early next year. Because for those who don't know the backstory, there was some type of conflict between the wives of, I believe, both of the Charlo brothers. Now, if I'm getting the backstory mixed up with what caused the incident to happen, you know, clarify that for me in the comments. But long story short, Caleb Plant was stepping in to try to defuse the situation, and in front of his wife, one of the Charlo brothers, I think Jermall, grabbed Caleb Plant by his beard and said something slick. I don't remember what he said, but he said something, grabbed him by his beard and said something real slick, very, very disrespectful. And Caleb Plant hauled off on him and smacked him. Because originally he tried to stop it. He told Caleb Plant either did something or said something to tell Caleb to stay in his place, and Caleb tried to defuse it, and eventually he grabbed Caleb by his beard, and Caleb, either in that moment or sometime after, he smacked Jermallcharlo, and Charlo didn't do anything because if you look at the video, he knows he was wrong. He knows he was wrong. So he did not respond back like he typically does against other people he has conflict with. And then you fast forward years later, Charlo, a little more mature, gets his end of the bargain done by stopping LaManna. And then Caleb Plant, also more mature, more seasoned, does not take care of his job and loses to Resendiz. So now you don't get to see a fight that I think would have had a lot of venom and animosity. Maybe not as much as it would have had a few years ago when Charlo was a little more hot-headed, but the backstory would have been everything, man. Like, you get a chance to get into the ring and settle your grudge right there. And now, I don't see how that's necessarily going to happen. Let me know what you guys thought of that fight, but even, I didn't see the full fight, but even just looking at the highlights, you could just tell Caleb Plant, the book is out, and this is the game plan. Whether the slick boxing early on, try to get him to empty the gas tank significantly, and then pounce on him. And that's what fighters are doing. And now Resendiz made a name for himself because of it. Let me know what you thought of the fight. Let me know what you thought Caleb Plant did wrong in that fight. Where do you think that he's going to go after this? What do you think is going to happen with Jermallcharlo? Who's he going to fight now? Is it going to be Caleb Plant, which I don't foresee after this? Or would it be somebody else, including somebody like Armando Resendiz, who took care of the job against Caleb Plant? Let me know in the comments below. And then secondly, there was supposed to be a fight being made between Teofimo Lopez and Devin the Dream Haney. Okay, the Takeover versus the Dream. We just saw them fight in Times Square last month, I believe, on the undercard for Rolly Romero and Ryan Garcia, and the fireworks or lack thereof that we saw during that night. Teofimo Lopez had the best performance in the night. Not otherworldly, but he went out there to do his job and throwing punches and bunches because that's who he is. Okay, and Devin Haney, the exact opposite. Got on his bicycle for 12 rounds and bored the crowd to sleep in the middle of New York City, Times Square. Now you have a matchup being made between these two, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing news today that as opposed to actually being on the track to having a deal done for, I believe, August 16th, now it's up in the air. We don't know if that fight's going to happen because the negotiations fell through last night. Bill Haney put out a tweet saying something to that effect and then took that tweet down. So maybe they're back, you know, talking again and figuring things out. But you look at the negotiations here and you have to wonder if one or both of these guys priced themselves out. We know Teofimo can be a notoriously tough person to negotiate with, and maybe that's what Bill Haney was going to allude to. But either way, I mean, I want to see what's going to happen with this, because now you have Teo, who I think should I don't know if I want to see him move up in weight. I think 140 has been the heaviest we've seen him at if he's been there. 135 for sure, but 140. Can Devin make the weight safely? Can Teo go up in weight and still carry that power and that speed? Don't know the answer to that. And if he's had one fight at 140, it's only been one or two. It's not been many. So I'm very interested to see if that fight's going to happen, because I think that Teofimo Lopez can beat Devin Haney. Teofimo is wild at times, but he is a very unique fighter. Okay, this is my Rafiki stick right here, my bow staff. He's a very, very unique fighter in the sense that he can throw punches from odd angles without really having to have his feet set. I don't know if it was last fight, but dude jumped in the air and threw punches while jumping in the air, and they still had steam on him. Okay, like he's very, very good, very, very high power, very fast twitch. And Devin Haney has shown that he doesn't necessarily deal with speed that well. He had a problem with Ryan Garcia, obviously, because Ryan knows him. Just like Rolly Romero knew Ryan Garcia better than, quote-unquote, he knew himself. And it turned out to be true. Now you have Teofimo Lopez, very, very fast, very sharp. Defense, I give it like a B, B+, but good enough to be able to get in the ring and be able to give Devin Haney some serious problems. Especially with Devin Haney showing that he may or may not still be gun-shy after that loss to Ryan Garcia, because he looked gun-shy in his last fight on that undercard last month in Times Square. So I'm really curious to see if this fight's going to happen. I hope they're not pricing themselves out or nothing dumb's happening, but I'm going to keep tabs on that and see what happens with that fight. And then the last one that I want to talk about is the fight between Manny Pacquiao and Mario Barrios coming up in either June or July. And they're having a press conference tonight if they haven't already had it. I don't know how to feel about this fight. You have Mario Barrios, who is still a young champion, but not the top at that division at welterweight at 147. And then you have Manny Pacquiao, 46 years old, currently a senator in the Philippines, coming back to fight Mario Barrios. And I think that he sees a guy who has slow feet and is kind of straight up and down, doesn't have extremely great lateral movement, not a power puncher. I think he sees an opportunity there. However, there's only so far that goes, because Manny Pacquiao, the things that made him great are the same things or qualities that he's lost and still losing with age. We saw the lack of explosiveness, not just with the hand speed, but with the foot movement. Now, he's still fast compared to the average person, but when you're at that level, compared to his peers at 147 at the welterweight division, maybe a half a tick too slow now. And I have to wonder, is this a fight that Manny can take advantage of what some would term a paper champion? Or is he getting into dangerous waters, overestimating his own ability and underestimating Mario Barrios' ability? I'm not a fan of this fight. That's just me personally. But others are very interested in seeing this. I'm not saying it can't happen and that he can't win, but his last fight against Resendiz Ugas, I believe he lost that fight, lost his WBA title to Ugas. I thought he fought very well, but I saw him get hit with more shots than he usually does, and shots that he would not usually get hit with. And Ugas, while a very, very, very good fighter, is not an elite fighter in the sense of like a Terrence Crawford or Earl Spence, like those guys in their primes, or Sean Porter, right? If that Manny Pacquiao fights Sean Porter, it might not go well for him. If he fights Crawford at that time 3 years ago, probably wouldn't go well for him. So he was able to beat Keith Thurman, who was kind of in and out of having injuries and having layoffs. So maybe that was a prime opportunity for him to beat a younger fighter. But this one, I don't know. I like what I saw in training camp so far from the clips he's put up, but I think that he's fast enough to get it done, but the separation of skill is so much less now, to the point where it can be competitive in a way that it would not have been a couple years ago. And all it needs to be is close enough for one punch to change the outcome of a fight, or have a higher chance of landing and changing the outcome of a fight. So, I mean, that's what I think of this fight. I'm not a huge fan of it. You know, best of luck to Manny. I hope he gets it done, but I'm not a huge fan of this fight. And Sugar Ray Leonard was having an interview about where he talked about this recently, and he was giving insight to how he felt when he came back in I think it was his last fight against Norris or something like that. The fight where he lost, and it was kind of clear that he didn't have it anymore. And he said he had to take the fight so he knew, so he could know that, you know, it was time. And, you know, when you're going through it, you still think that you have the same abilities that you did before. And it's not until you get into the ring on fight night that gets answered sometimes. Sometimes it gets answered in the gym, but other times it gets answered in the ring. And that's not necessarily where you want to find those answers at. But you have to let a guy like that figure that out for himself. You can't tell him, no, you can't do it, or come on, man. Like, I know it's a movie like Rocky, where Rocky's telling he's telling Apollo Creed, yo, like, we ain't young no more, you know, like, you're already Apollo Creed. You want to fight the Russian for what? You don't need to. Like, you don't have anything to prove to anybody. But in that moment, he felt the challenge. Apollo felt that challenge, and then on top of that, it's hard once that's all you know to just turn that switch off. Especially when you get into the gym after you take a couple of weeks off into retirement, and you're hitting the bag and the speed look like it's back. You know, your reflexes feel good. You're like, yo, I can still do this. It's hard to turn that off. So let me know what you guys think about this fight between Barrios and Manny Pacquiao. Do you want to see the fight happen? And then if you do you think Manny will win, and what are his chances to win? Do you think it's an even fight? Do you think that he's head and shoulders better than Mario Barrios? Do you think that Mario Barrios is better than Manny at this point because of age? Let me know in the comments below. And that's my synopsis for this past week for boxing. I'll be making other videos this week. I need to start shifting over to the Phillies. Bryce Harper is back healthy after getting hit in the elbow, and they're currently up 7-0 in their game tonight. I have to check to see if we still have the best record in baseball or not. But listen, a lot to talk about there, and then other fights coming up, obviously, with Tank Davis, and then Usyk with Daniel Dubois. So we'll get into it. But let me know what you think about the topics I covered today, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. Peace.